Becky Gash stepped off the ledge. For one infinite second, there was nothing. No ground, no safety, just 43 stories of empty air and the rain-soaked Tokyo night rushing up to meet her. Her stomach lurched. Her hands grasped at nothing. This was it. Finally, it would all be. Something slammed into her from behind. An arm hooked around her waist with brutal force, yanking her backward so hard the air punched out of her lungs. She crashed into a body, solid, massive, and they both went down hard on the concrete rooftop. The impact sent lightning through her spine. For a moment, Becky couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the rain hammering down on her face and the crushing weight pinning her to the ground. "Are you insane?" a voice growled in her ear. Russian accent. Male. Furious. Becky shoved at him, trying to get free, but he was too heavy. "Get off me!" "Not until you fuck." The weight suddenly lifted as the man rolled off her, clutching his side. Even in the darkness and rain, Becky could see the blood. So much blood, spreading across his white shirt, pooling on the concrete beneath him. She scrambled backward on her hands and feet, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who just saved your life." He pressed his hand harder against the wound, his face twisting in pain. "You're welcome, by the way." "I didn't ask you to save me." "Too bad. I did it anyway." He tried to sit up, failed, and slumped back against the wall. "Worst timing of my life. I come up here to hide, and some girl decides it's a good night to—" The rooftop door exploded open. Two men burst through, both armed, both scanning the darkness. Becky's savior, or captor, she wasn't sure which, grabbed her arm and yanked her flat against the concrete behind an air conditioning unit. "Don't! Move!" he breathed against her ear. Becky's pulse thundered in her skull. She could hear the men talking in Russian, their footsteps moving across the roof, getting closer. One of them laughed at something, cold and cruel. The man beside her had his gun out now. His breathing was ragged, his hand shaking slightly as he aimed toward the voices. Blood dripped from his fingers onto her arm. He was going to die. They were both going to die. The footsteps stopped 10 feet away. "Daniel!" one of them shouted. "We know you're up here. Victor saw you come through the building. There's nowhere left to run." Daniel. So that was his name. Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked at Becky, and for a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. Two people who'd come to this rooftop to die, now fighting desperately to live. "When I move," he whispered, "you run for the door. Don't stop. Don't look back." "I don't. Run!" He stood up in one fluid motion and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. The muzzle flashes lit up the rooftop like lightning. Becky heard shouting, return fire, and Daniel's body jerking as a bullet caught him in the shoulder. But he didn't go down. "Now!" he roared. Becky ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just sprinted across the wet concrete toward the door. Behind her, more gunshots cracked through the rain. A bullet sparked off metal somewhere to her left. She could hear Daniel fighting, grunting, cursing, the wet sound of flesh hitting flesh. She reached the door and yanked it open, then stopped. Daniel was on his knees now, one of the men standing over him with a gun pressed to his head. The other man was down, not moving. Blood everywhere. Daniel looked up and saw her in the doorway. "Go!" he said. The man with the gun laughed. "Run, little girl. This doesn't concern you." Becky's fingers tightened on the door handle. Every logical part of her brain screamed to run, to get away, to let this play out without her. This wasn't her fight. This wasn't her problem. 10 minutes ago, she'd been ready to die anyway. But something in Daniel's eyes stopped her. He'd saved her. A complete stranger, bleeding and hunted, had grabbed her and pulled her back from the edge. And now she was going to watch him die? "I said go," Daniel repeated, harder this time. "I called the police," Becky lied, her voice shaking. "They're on their way. They'll be here in 2 minutes." The gunman's head snapped toward her. What? Before I jumped, I called them, told them there were men with guns on the roof. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling, and held it up. They're coming. It was a bluff, a desperate, stupid bluff. But it worked. The gunman hesitated, looking between Becky and Daniel. Sirens wailed in the distance. Maybe real, maybe coincidence, but close enough to matter. Shit, the gunman spat. He kicked Daniel hard in the ribs, making him double over. This isn't over, Cartel. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Then he ran, disappearing down the stairwell. For a long moment, there was only the rain and the labored sound of Daniel's breathing. Becky walked slowly across the roof toward him. He was still on his knees, one hand pressed to his side, the other to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers from both wounds. You're an idiot, he said without looking up. You're welcome. I didn't need your help. You had a gun to your head. I've had worse. Despite everything, the fear, the adrenaline, the absolute insanity of the last 5 minutes. Becky almost smiled. You're still an idiot. Daniel finally looked up at her. His face was pale, his eyes dark and intense. Why didn't you run? I don't know. That's a terrible answer. It's the truth. Becky crouched down in front of him, her soaked jeans squelching on the concrete. You saved me. I saved you. Now we're even. We're not even close to even. He tried to stand, swayed dangerously. But we need to move. More will come. They always do. You need a hospital. I need to disappear. He managed to get to his feet, leaning heavily against the wall. And so do you. That man saw your face. If they think you can identify them, I'm already dead anyway, Becky said quietly. That's why I was up here, remember? Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, I know a place. It's not safe, but it's safer than here. Can you walk? Can you? I've done worse on worse wounds. He gestured toward the door. Come on, Becky from America. Let's go, not die together. She hadn't told him her name. How did you? Your student ID. It fell out of your pocket when I grabbed you. He started limping toward the stairs. Now move. We've got maybe 5 minutes before this place is crawling with very angry Russians. Becky looked back one last time at the ledge, at the drop that had seemed like her only option just minutes ago. Then she followed Daniel into the darkness. Daniel's safe house wasn't a house at all. It was a storage unit in Shibuya, tucked behind a pachinko parlor that never closed. The kind of place nobody looked twice at. The kind of place where questions didn't get asked. Becky helped him through the narrow corridors, his weight heavy against her shoulder. He was fading. She could feel it in the way his steps dragged, in the shallow rasp of his breathing. Blood soaked through both their clothes now, warm and sticky. How much further? Becky asked. Here. Daniel fumbled with a key, nearly dropped it. His hands were shaking. Unit 17. The metal door rolled up with a screech that made them both wince. Inside was sparse. A cot, a metal shelf stacked with supplies, a mini fridge humming in the corner. But it was dry. It was hidden. It would have to be enough. Daniel collapsed onto the cot the moment they were inside. Becky pulled the door down and locked it, then turned to assess the damage. Where's your first aid kit? Shelf, 2nd level. His eyes were half closed. But I need you to do something first. You need me to stop you from bleeding out first. Becky. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Listen to me. In my jacket pocket, there's a phone. You need to destroy it, smash it, burn it. I don't care. But it can't be traced here. She pulled the phone from his jacket. It was cracked, covered in blood, but still functional. Why? Because they'll use it to find me. To find you. His grip loosened. Please. Becky stared at the phone for a moment, then set it on the concrete floor and stomped on it with her heel. Once, twice, 3 times until it was just pieces of glass and circuit board. Then she swept the remains into a trash bag. Happy? Thrilled. He tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. Now, you can save my life. The first aid kit was military grade. Tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, surgical staples. Becky's hands moved automatically, years of pre-nursing coursework kicking in even as her mind struggled to catch up with everything that had happened. She cut away Daniel's shirt, 2 gunshot wounds, one in his side, one in his shoulder. The side was worse, still bleeding freely. Entry wound, no exit. The bullet was still inside. "I can't do this," Becky said. "You need a real hospital, a real surgeon." "You're doing fine. I'm a nursing student. I've never even—" "Then tonight's your first time." Daniel's eyes locked on hers. "I've been shot before. I know what needs to happen. I'll walk you through it. You'll die, maybe, but I'll definitely die in a hospital when they identify me and call the bratva before the police." He reached up and touched her face, his fingers leaving a smear of blood on her cheek. "I'm asking you to try. That's all. Just try." Becky's hands trembled as she unpacked the kit. Gauze, forceps, antiseptic, a bottle of vodka that definitely wasn't for disinfecting. "Talk to me," Daniel said, "while you work. Tell me why you were on that roof." "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." Becky poured antiseptic over the wound. Daniel hissed but didn't pull away. "My professor assaulted me. 3 months ago. I reported it. The university investigated. And he's tenured, published, respected. I'm just an exchange student from Detroit who parties too much and can't handle the pressure." She pressed gauze against the bleeding. "They said there wasn't enough evidence. Suggested I withdraw from his class. Maybe take some time off to get my head straight. But you didn't. I couldn't afford to. I'm here on scholarship. If I withdraw, I lose funding. If I lose funding, I go home. If I go home—" Her voice cracked. "My family already thinks I'm lying. My mom said I probably led him on. My dad stopped taking my calls." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What's his name?" "Who?" "Your professor. What's his name?" "Professor Takeshi." "Why?" "Because when this is over, I'm going to pay him a visit." Becky looked up sharply. "You can't." "I won't kill him, but I'll make sure he understands what happens to men who hurt women and get away with it." His eyes were cold. "Nobody should get away with that. You don't even know me." "I know enough." He took a long pull from the vodka bottle. "Now keep talking. The pain's easier when I'm not thinking about it." Becky used the forceps to probe the wound. Daniel's entire body went rigid, a sound escaping his throat that was barely human. But he didn't tell her to stop. "I tried everything," Becky continued, her voice shaking. "I went to student services, to the International Student Office. I even tried to get a lawyer, but nobody would take the case pro bono, and I couldn't afford to pay. Eventually, I gave up, failed his class, lost my scholarship, got evicted from student housing last week." "Where have you been staying?" 24-hour cafes mostly, sometimes the library." She could feel the bullet now, lodged against bone. "I was supposed to fly home tomorrow, but I couldn't face them. Couldn't face my mom's disappointment, my dad's silence, everyone knowing I failed. So, you went to the roof." "So I went to the roof?" The bullet came free with a wet sound that made her stomach turn. She dropped it into a metal tray and immediately packed the wound with hemostatic gauze. "Seemed easier than explaining?" "Dying is always easier than explaining." "Is that why you refused to kill that family? Because explaining was too hard?" Daniel's laugh was bitter. "I refused because I looked at those kids and saw my sister. She was 8 when my father killed her. Collateral damage in someone else's war. I've spent 15 years telling myself it was different when I pulled the trigger, that my kills were justified, necessary. But when Victor told me to kill those children, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I'm my father's son, a killer, a monster. And if I killed those kids, there'd be nothing left of me worth saving." Becky started suturing the wound, her hands steadier now. "You saved me tonight. Monsters don't do that. I saved you because you were in my way. Bullshit! You could have let me fall. Could have hidden behind my body when those men came. Could have used me as a hostage to escape. She tied off the last suture and moved to his shoulder wound. But you didn't. You told me to run. You protected me. Maybe I was just having a good day. Maybe you're not as much of a monster as you think. The shoulder wound was cleaner. Through and through. No bullet to extract. Becky cleaned it, sutured both sides, and wrapped it in bandages. By the time she finished, her hands were covered in blood and Daniel's eyes were half closed. "Thank you," he murmured. "Don't thank me yet. You could still die from infection." "I've survived worse odds." He caught her hand before she could pull away. "Becky, that phone you destroyed, it had contacts, people who could help you, get you out of Japan, new identity, new life. Why would you do that for me? Because nobody helped me when I needed it. Nobody believed me when I said I didn't want this life. They just told me blood is blood. Family is everything. That I didn't have a choice." His grip tightened slightly. "You have a choice. You can still walk away from all of this." Becky looked at their joined hands, his covered in scars and calluses, hers soft and shaking. "What if I don't want to walk away? Then you're crazier than I thought. I've got nowhere else to go. No money, no family, no future." She met his eyes. "And you're hurt. You need someone to watch your back while you heal. Someone those men don't know about. They saw your face. They saw a girl on a roof. They don't know my name, where I live, what I look like when I'm not soaking wet and crying." She squeezed his hand. "Let me help you, please. I need—" Her voice broke. "I need to matter to someone, even if it's just for a few days." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay, but first rule of staying alive, no more suicide attempts. Deal?" "Deal." Becky felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been wound tight for months. "Now sleep. You've lost a lot of blood. What about you? Someone needs to keep watch." "Becky?" "Sleep, Daniel. I'll wake you if anyone comes." He wanted to argue. She could see it in his eyes. But exhaustion and blood loss won out. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into something deeper. Becky sat on the floor beside the cot, her back against the wall, and finally let herself cry. Not from fear, not from grief, from relief. For the first time in months, someone had believed her. Someone had cared. Someone had looked at her and seen something worth saving, even if that someone was a Russian mobster with a death wish. Outside, Tokyo kept spinning. Neon lights flickered, traffic hummed. People lived their normal lives. But inside Unit 17, two broken people were learning how to breathe again. Daniel woke up screaming. Becky was on her feet instantly, hand reaching for the knife she'd found in his supplies. But there was no threat, no attackers. Just Daniel thrashing on the cot, his face twisted in terror, Russian words pouring from his lips. "Daniel!" She touched his shoulder carefully. "Daniel, wake up!" His eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused. For a second, he didn't recognize her. His hand went for his gun. "It's me," Becky said quickly, stepping back with her hands raised. "It's Becky. You're safe." Recognition dawned slowly. Daniel's breathing was ragged, his shirt soaked through with sweat despite the cool air. He dropped the gun and pressed both hands to his face. "Fuck," he muttered. "Sorry. I'm sorry." "Don't be." Becky sat down on the edge of the cot. "Nightmares?" "Always." He lowered his hands, and Becky could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "What time is it?" 3 in the afternoon. You've been out for 14 hours. 14? He tried to sit up, winced, and fell back. "We need to move. They'll have people searching every—" "They already did. 2 hours ago." Becky kept her voice calm. "I heard them in the hallway. They checked every unit except this one." "How?" "I put a broken padlock on the outside. Made it look like squatters had already cleared it out and moved on." She held up the lock. Learned that trick from my cousin back in Detroit. She used to hide from her dealer the same way. Daniel stared at her. You're full of surprises. Yeah, well, you're not the only one who knows how to survive. Becky stood and retrieved a bottle of water and protein bar from the shelf. Here, you need to eat something. He took them, but didn't open either. Tell me about Detroit. Why? Because I'm trying to figure out how a nursing student from Detroit knows how to forge crime scenes and stay calm while being hunted by the Bratva. Becky sat back down, this time on the floor where she could watch the door. My neighborhood wasn't exactly safe. Mom worked 2 jobs. Dad left when I was 9. My older brother Marcus tried to keep us afloat, but... She paused. He got involved with some bad people. Dealing. Running packages. He said it was temporary, just until we got ahead. What happened? He got shot when I was 16. Bled out on our front porch while I tried to stop it with dish towels and prayers. Her voice was flat, emotionless. That's when I decided to go into nursing. Figured if I'd known more, maybe he'd still be alive. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Nobody does anything about it. She looked at him. That's why I believed you last night. About refusing to kill that family. Because I know what it's like to lose someone to violence. To have people treat it like it's just part of life. Just the way things are. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, your brother would be proud of you. What you did last night. What you're doing now. Marcus would tell me I'm an idiot for getting mixed up with a Russian mobster. He'd probably be right. They both smiled a little at that. How's your pain? Becky asked, changing the subject. Manageable. You did good work. He finally opened the water and drank half the bottle in one go. Better than some field medics I've had. Don't get used to it. I'm not planning to make a career out of patching up gangsters. What were you planning? Before everything fell apart? Becky leaned her head back against the wall. Pediatric nursing. I wanted to work in underserved communities. Help kids like my brother. Like me. Kids who don't have access to good health care. She laughed bitterly. Guess that's not happening now. Why not? Because I'm a college dropout hiding in a storage unit with a wanted criminal. Not exactly the resume hospitals are looking for. The Bratva won't chase you forever, Daniel said. Once they realize you're not a threat. And when will that be? A week? A month? A year? Becky's voice rose despite herself. I can't just put my life on hold indefinitely, Daniel. I can't keep running and hiding and hoping things magically get better. So what do you want to do? I want my life back. I want to finish school. I want Professor Takeshi to face consequences for what he did. I want my parents to believe me. She was crying now. Hot, angry tears that she couldn't stop. I want to stop feeling like I'm drowning every single day. Daniel pushed himself upright, ignoring the obvious pain it caused. He reached out and pulled Becky toward him, wrapping his good arm around her shoulders. Then we'll get it back, he said quietly. How? You're running for your life. We'll figure it out. Together. He pulled back to look at her. You saved my life, Becky. Twice. That means something in my world. It means I owe you. And I always pay my debts. I don't want your money. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about justice. Real justice. His eyes were intense. You want Takeshi to pay? I can make that happen. You want your life back? I know people who can arrange that. New documents, clean record, whatever you need. Why would you do that? Because for the first time in 15 years, I have a chance to be something other than what my father made me. A chance to help instead of hurt. He touched her face gently, his thumb wiping away her tears. You gave me that. Let me return the favor. Becky wanted to say yes, wanted to believe him. But she'd trusted people before, and they'd let her down. Her parents, the university, the system that was supposed to protect her. What's the catch? She asked. No catch. But it won't be easy. And it won't be safe. The Bratva is still looking for me. If they find us, they'll kill us both. No hesitation. No mercy. So we stay hidden. For now. But eventually, I need to end this. Victor and the others, they won't stop until I'm dead, which means I need to give them a reason to stop. Like what? Daniel's expression darkened. Like leverage. Information they can't afford to lose. Proof of their operations that I can leak if they come after me. You'd betray your own people? They stopped being my people the moment they ordered me to murder children. He took her hand. But I need help. I need someone who can move through the city without being recognized. Someone smart. Someone brave enough to take risks. You want me to spy on the Bratva? I want you to help me survive long enough to help you get your life back. After that, you walk away clean. New identity, new start. I'll even pay for you to finish nursing school wherever you want. It was insane, dangerous, probably suicidal. But what was the alternative? Going back to sleeping in cafes? Flying home to a family that didn't believe her? Living the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, wondering if those men from the roof would find her? What do you need me to do? Becky asked. Daniel pulled a laptop from under the cot. First, we need to get into the Bratva's financial systems. They keep digital records of everything. Payoffs, protection money, smuggling routes. If we can access that information, we can use it as insurance. And how exactly do we access Russian mafia financial systems from a storage unit? That's where you come in. There's a club in Roppongi, high-end place called Crystal. It's owned by the Bratva, but they use it to launder money. Every Friday night, Victor's accountant meets with local businessmen to collect payments. You want me to steal from the accountant. I want you to get close enough to clone his phone. There's an app that can do it wirelessly. Takes about 30 seconds if you're within 3 feet. He opened the laptop and showed her a small device. You walk by, activate this, and we'll have access to everything. Just walk by a Russian mafia accountant and casually hack his phone. That's your plan. You'll be in disguise. Makeup, wig, nice dress. You'll look like every other club girl in Roppongi. Nobody will look twice. Except the accountant, who will be too busy counting money to notice one more pretty girl walking past. Daniel's expression softened. I wouldn't ask if there was another way, but I can't go myself. They know my face. This only works if they don't see you coming. Becky looked at the device in her hand. It was small, innocuous, easy to hide, easy to use, easy to get killed with if something went wrong. When? She asked. Tomorrow night. That gives us time to prepare, to practice, to make sure you're ready. I'll never be ready for this. Nobody ever is, but you'll do it anyway, because you're stronger than you think. He squeezed her hand. And because for the first time since that roof, you have something to fight for. He was right. She did have something to fight for. Her life, her future, her chance to matter. Okay, Becky said. Teach me how to be a spy. Daniel smiled. Lesson 1. Never call it spying. Call it information. Gathering? Sounds less illegal. Does it make it less illegal? Not even a little bit. Despite everything, Becky laughed. And for a moment, in that cramped storage unit with a wounded mobster, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The dress was red, tight, expensive. Becky stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror Daniel had propped against the storage unit wall. She didn't recognize herself. The wig was long and black, styled in soft waves that framed her face. The makeup was dramatic. Smoky eyes, bold lips, contouring that changed the shape of her cheekbones. Even her posture was different, confident, predatory. You look perfect, Daniel said from behind her. I look like someone's mistress. That's exactly what you're supposed to look like. He limped over, still favoring his injured side. Crystal caters to wealthy men who want to be seen with beautiful women. You'll blend right in. Until someone talks to me and realizes I don't speak Japanese well enough to, then you play up the exotic American angle. Smile, laugh, touch their arm. Most men stop thinking clearly when a beautiful woman pays attention to them. Becky turned to face him. Is that what I'm doing to you? Making you stop thinking clearly? Daniel's expression shifted. You're doing something to me. I'm not sure what to call it yet. The air between them changed. Charged. Dangerous in a completely different way than Russian mobsters with guns. Becky broke eye contact first. Show me the device again. Daniel pulled out the phone cloner, grateful for the distraction. It's simple. You activate it with this button. The LED turns blue when it's scanning, green when it's connected, red if something goes wrong. And if it turns red, then you walk away like nothing happened, and we try again another night. He demonstrated the activation sequence. The key is proximity. You need to be within 3 feet for at least 30 seconds. Longer is better, but 30 is the minimum. How do I get that close without being obvious? That's what we've been practicing. Daniel gestured to the open space in the storage unit. Show me. Becky took a breath and shifted into character. She walked toward him with a practiced sway, phone in hand, eyes locked on his face. When she got close enough, she pretended to stumble in her heels, catching herself on his arm. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice higher, breathier than normal. These shoes are killing me. Her hand stayed on his arm. Her body pressed close. The device hidden in her clutch activated silently. 30 seconds. She counted them in her head while maintaining eye contact, laughing at nothing, playing the part of a slightly drunk club girl who'd found an excuse to touch an attractive man. When she pulled away, the device's LED glowed green in her peripheral vision. How was that? Becky asked, dropping the act. Daniel's jaw was tight. Too good. You're a natural. I don't know if that's a compliment. It's a survival skill. And you might just survive this after all. He sat down heavily on the cot, his face pale. The day of preparation had taken its toll. Becky was beside him immediately, checking his bandages. You're bleeding again. Just a little. Daniel? I'm fine. We need to focus on tomorrow night. But his hand was shaking when he tried to wave her off. You're not fine. You're pushing too hard too fast. Becky made him lie back and began unwrapping the shoulder wound. The stitches were holding, but the area was inflamed. This is infected. You need antibiotics. There's amoxicillin in the kit. You need stronger than that. You need IV antibiotics and actual medical care. What I need is for you to successfully clone Victor's accountant's phone tomorrow night so we can both get out of this alive. Daniel caught her wrist. I'll be fine, Becky. I've survived worse. You keep saying that. Because it's true. When I was 19, I took 3 bullets in a warehouse in St. Petersburg. Crawled 2 miles through snow to reach help. Spent 6 weeks in a basement while a veterinarian, yes, a veterinarian, kept me alive with animal antibiotics and vodka. Despite herself, Becky smiled. A veterinarian? My father didn't trust hospitals. Said they kept records. Asked questions. Daniel's expression darkened. He was right. The man who shot me had police on his payroll. If I'd gone to a real hospital, I'd have been dead within hours. Is that why you don't trust doctors? I don't trust anyone who has more to gain from my death than my survival. He looked at her intently. Except you. For some reason, I trust you. You barely know me. I know you pulled me back when you could have let me bleed out. I know you stayed when you could have run. I know you're risking your life to help a man who has nothing to offer you except danger and broken promises. You're offering me my life back. If we survive, that's a big if. Daniel sat up slowly, ignoring her protests. Which is why we need to talk about what happens if things go wrong tomorrow night. Nothing's going to go wrong. Everything could go wrong. Victor's accountant might recognize you from the roof. Security might search your bag and find the device. Someone might ask questions you can't answer. He pulled a small key from his pocket and pressed it into her palm. This is for a locker at Shinjuku Station. Locker 217. Inside is money, documents, and a phone with one contact programmed in. A woman named Katya. She owes me a favor. She can get you out of Japan within 12 hours. Daniel, if anything happens to me tomorrow night, if I'm arrested, if I'm killed, If I just disappear, you take what's in that locker and you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just run. I'm not going to. Promise me. His grip on her hand tightened. Promise me that if this goes wrong, you'll save yourself. Becky wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wouldn't abandon him the way everyone had abandoned her, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Real fear, probably the first genuine emotion she'd seen from him that wasn't filtered through pain or anger. I promise, she lied. Daniel studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. He didn't believe her either, but he accepted it. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's going to be a long night. What about you? I'll keep watch. You need sleep more than I do. Becky, I'm not arguing about this. You're injured. You're running a fever. And you're no good to anyone if you collapse tomorrow night. She pushed him back down on the cot. Sleep. I'll wake you if anything happens. For once, Daniel didn't fight her. He was asleep within minutes, his breathing evening out into something deeper, but still labored. Becky sat on the floor with her back against the door, the key to locker 217 clutched in her hand. She thought about tomorrow night, about walking into a club full of dangerous men, about getting close enough to clone a phone belonging to someone who might recognize her. She thought about Professor Takeshi, about the hearing where they'd chosen his word over hers, about the way her mother had looked at her when she'd called home crying, like Becky was the problem, not the man who'd assaulted her. She thought about Marcus bleeding out on their front porch while she'd pressed dish towels against the wound and screamed for help that came too late. She'd spent her whole life watching bad people win, watching good people lose, watching the system protect those with power and abandon those without it. Maybe it was time to stop watching. Maybe it was time to fight back. Becky pulled out her own phone, the cheap burner Daniel had given her, and opened the Notes app. She started typing everything she remembered about the roof, about the men who'd attacked them, about their voices, their faces, their guns. If she was going to do this, she was going to do it right. She was going to be more than just bait or a pretty distraction. She was going to be a weapon. And tomorrow night, she was going to prove to Daniel and to herself that she was more than just a girl who'd almost jumped off a roof. She was a survivor, and survivors didn't run. They fought. Outside the storage unit, Tokyo prepared for another Friday night. Clubs opened. Money changed hands. Bad men made bad deals and convinced themselves they were untouchable. Tomorrow night, one of them would learn differently. Becky smiled in the darkness. She couldn't wait. Crystal was everything Becky expected and worse. The bass thumped so hard she could feel it in her chest. Bodies pressed together on the dance floor, writhing under strobing lights that turned everything into fractured moments. A hand here, a mouth there, money-changing hands in dark corners. The air was thick with perfume, sweat, and something darker. Danger, maybe. Or just expensive sin. Becky kept her shoulders back, her chin up, her stride confident despite the heels that were already making her feet scream. She'd practiced this walk for hours in the storage unit, but the storage unit hadn't prepared her for this, for the weight of dozens of eyes tracking her movement, assessing her worth, deciding if she was prey or predator. Daniel's voice crackled in the tiny earpiece hidden beneath her wig. You're doing great. Second floor, VIP section. That's where Victor's accountant meets his clients. Becky didn't respond, couldn't respond. The wire was one way only. Daniel could hear everything she heard, could see everything through the button camera hidden in her clutch, but she was on her own. She climbed the stairs to the VIP section. A bouncer stepped in front of her, massive, expressionless. Members only, he said in Japanese. Becky smiled and switched to English with a heavy American accent. I'm meeting someone. Dimitri? Tall, expensive suit? Looks like he counts money for fun? The bouncer's expression didn't change, but he stepped aside. Too easy, Becky thought. Way too easy. The VIP section was quieter, but no less dangerous. Men in suits sat in curved booths, bottles of champagne sweating on tables, women draped across laps like accessories. And there, in the corner booth, exactly where Daniel said he'd be, Dmitry Volkov, Victor's accountant, mid-40s, designer glasses, fingers adorned with rings that probably cost more than Becky's entire education. He was talking to two Japanese businessmen, a leather portfolio open on the table between them. Money was changing hands. A lot of money. "That's him," Daniel's voice confirmed in her ear. "You need to get close. 30 seconds minimum." Becky scanned the room, looking for an opening. Dmitry was surrounded by people. Getting within 3 feet meant getting past his associates, past the women already vying for his attention, past security that was definitely watching. Then she saw it. The bathroom was directly behind Dmitry's booth. If she walked past at the right angle, stumbled at the right moment, she moved before she could overthink it. The device was in her clutch, already activated. Blue LED glowing. She walked past Dmitry's booth, eyes on the bathroom, playing the part of just another club girl who'd had too much to drink. Then she stumbled, perfectly, exactly as practiced. Her hand shot out and caught the back of Dmitry's booth for balance. She was less than 2 feet from him now, the device practically touching his jacket pocket where Daniel had said he kept his phone. "Sorry," she gasped in English, laughing at herself. "These heels are—" Dmitry looked up, and Becky's blood turned to ice. He recognized her. She saw it in his eyes. That flicker of confusion, then realization, then calculation. "You," he said slowly, also in English. "From the roof." Time stopped. Becky's mind raced through her options. Run, fight, deny, scream. But her body was frozen, her hand still gripping the booth, the device still scanning. 20 seconds. She needed 10 more seconds. "I don't know what you're talking about," Becky said, keeping her voice light, confused. "I just got here tonight. First time at Crystal. My friend said—" "Your friend said what?" Dmitry's hand moved toward his jacket, toward a gun, maybe, or a phone to call security. 15 seconds. "That the champagne here is amazing," Becky improvised. "But honestly, I've had better in—" "Stop!" Dmitry stood, and suddenly the entire booth was looking at her. The businessmen, the women, security emerging from the shadows. "You were on that roof with Daniel Cartel." 25 seconds. "I think you're confusing me with someone else. I'm just trying to find the bathroom and—" Dmitry grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron. "Where is he?" In her ear, Daniel's voice was urgent. "Becky, abort. Get out of there now." But the device hadn't turned green yet. 5 more seconds. "I don't know who Daniel Cartel is," Becky said, and she let real fear creep into her voice. Because it wasn't hard. She was terrified. "Please, you're hurting me." "Good. Maybe pain will improve your memory." Dmitry twisted her wrist harder. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Where—" The device turned green. Becky didn't hesitate. She drove her knee up into Dmitry's groin with everything she had. Daniel had taught her that move on their second day together. Said it worked regardless of size or strength, that it would buy her 3 to 5 seconds. He was right. Dmitry doubled over with a sound that was barely human. His grip loosened. Becky ripped her hand free, grabbed her clutch, and ran. Security was already moving. She could hear shouting behind her, feet pounding on the floor. She hit the stairs at full speed, nearly fell, caught herself on the railing. The main floor was chaos. Too many people. Too much noise. Perfect. Becky dove into the crowd, using bodies as shields, the bass thundering around her like a heartbeat. Someone grabbed her arm. She didn't look, just jerked away and kept moving. The exit. She could see it. 20 feet, 15. A hand closed around her throat from behind. "Going somewhere," a voice said in Russian-accented English. Becky was yanked backward into a service corridor. The door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the music. 3 men surrounded her now. Professional. Calm. Dmitry stumbled through the door behind them, still clutching his groin, his face twisted with rage. You stupid bitch, he spat. Do you have any idea what you've done? Got your phone. Records, Becky said, surprised by how steady her voice was. And you just assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses. That's going to be hard to explain. Dimitri's laugh was ugly. Nobody in that club will remember your face, and nobody will find your body. He nodded to the men. Take her to the van. Victor will want to ask her questions before we... The lights went out. All of them. The entire building plunged into darkness so complete, Becky couldn't see her own hand in front of her face. Then gunshots. 3, 4. The sound impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Someone screamed. Bodies hit the floor. Becky pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering, not sure if she should run or hide, or... A hand found hers in the darkness. She almost screamed until she heard his voice. Time to go, Daniel said. He pulled her through the corridor, moving with confidence despite the pitch black. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red. Becky could see bodies now. The 3 men who'd surrounded her, all down. Dimitri was gone. Run away or dead? She couldn't tell. How did you... Later. Run! They burst out a back exit into an alley. A motorcycle was waiting, engine already running. Daniel threw his leg over and held out his hand. You know how to ride? Not even a little. Then hold on tight and don't let go. Becky climbed on behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. She could feel the bandages beneath his shirt, could feel how much pain he must be in. But his hands were steady on the handlebars. Did we get it? Daniel asked. The phone records? Yes. But Daniel, they know who I am. Dimitri recognized me. They'll come after... Let them come. He revved the engine. We've got everything we need now. Victor's financial records, his contacts, his entire operation laid out in digital form. By morning, that information will be in the hands of every law enforcement agency in Japan and Russia. The Bratva won't have time to hunt us. They'll be too busy saving themselves. You're going to destroy them. No, we're going to destroy them. He looked back at her, and she could see something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Pride. You did it, Becky. You walked into hell and came back with the devil's secrets. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, probably. Or Bratva. Either way, they needed to move. Daniel pulled out into Tokyo traffic, weaving between cars with practiced ease. Becky held on, her face pressed against his back, her heart still racing from the adrenaline. They'd done it. Against all odds, against every rational calculation, they'd actually done it. But as they sped through the neon-lit streets, Becky couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. That tomorrow, when Victor woke up and realized what they'd stolen, the real war would begin. And this time, there would be no running, no hiding, just 2 people against an empire. But for the first time since that roof, since that ledge, since the moment she decided dying was easier than fighting, Becky wasn't afraid. She was ready. If this story grabbed you by the throat and didn't let go, if you felt every heartbeat on that ledge, every desperate second in that club, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're bringing you something even darker, even more twisted, a story about choices that destroy you and the people who save you anyway. You won't want to miss it. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have cloned that phone? Would you have run, or would you have fought? And if you know someone who needs to hear a story about surviving when giving up seems easier, share this video. You might just save a life. Until next time, remember, sometimes the person who saves you is just as broken as you are. And sometimes that's exactly what makes them the right person.